So this is one of 4 videos on what we would have done in class today. Make sure you go through each of them as well as the worksheet that I'm going to post as a Word document on Blackboard. The first topic is net forces, which has to do with balanced and unbalanced forces. I have a block that's sitting here on the table, and the block is not moving. Now there are clearly forces at work on this block. For one, there's the weight of the block. The weight of the block, due to the force of gravity, would tend to pull the block down. But the block is not falling. That's because there's another force acting on it. That's the force of the table pushing upward on the block. Now, clearly those two forces have to be balanced, because if they weren't, the block would either fall or the block would be floating. So this is an example of balanced forces. And I can draw that on the board. So the weight of the block would tend to move it downward. Let's say that it weighs 250 newtons. But at the same time, the table is pushing up on the block with 250 newtons, so that we have balanced forces. And that's why the block is just sitting there. So what is the net force? The net force is the sum, the addition of all the forces, but we have to take into account their direction. Now it does not matter. It does not matter at all which direction you take is the positive direction and which you take is the negative direction. That negative sign only serves one purpose, to show that forces are in opposite directions. So if I say that downward is positive, in this case, I could have done the opposite. We have the 250 newtons due to the force of gravity, due to the weight of the block, minus, just showing it's in the opposite direction, the 250 newtons due to the upward pushing of the table on the block. So the net force is 0 newtons. It is balanced. Okay? Now let me do something else with the block. Watch this. So now I'm pushing the block, and the block is moving. So there are unbalanced forces at work. Now, what are all the forces that are working in the horizontal direction? Well, I'm pushing on the block, and clearly my pushing on the block is the stronger of all the forces because this thing's moving. But there's another force at work. There's friction between the table and the block. And that friction is going to be in the opposite direction. It's going to be opposing my pushing. But my pushing is a lot stronger, so I win. So if I draw that, there's the table. And say here I'm pushing. Let's say I'm pushing with 300 newtons. But the frictional force between the table and the block is going to be in the opposite direction, but it's not very strong. Let's say it's only 50 newtons. So what is the net force? Now I have to pick one of these directions to be negative. It doesn't matter. I'm going to pick this to be the negative direction, just because I want to. So 300 newtons of me pushing in this direction minus the 50 newtons of the friction in the other direction, I have an overall net force of 250 newtons. In which direction? In the positive direction, in this direction. So this is unbalanced, and because of that, the block is going to move in this direction.